In the previous video, we considered various font groups. So we've got our various fonts here, and we discussed how they're grouped in order of preference and what the browser does when rendering these fonts out in a website. However, you may find that some of the fonts that you want to work with are not available in these groups. So let me give you an example. You may work for a design studio, or you may work for a agency which has its own unique branding and has its own associated fonts for all its websites, which are not in this list. What you would then need to do is create and edit your own font list. So the way we do this is we can create our own set of groups for our fonts by selecting the edit font list. Once you open that up, you'll see you're presented with this dialog box like so. And what we have in this area, in this table here, we've got all of the available fonts installed on your machine. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to select a few fonts. So I'm going to say Arial Narrow, and it's worth mentioning that the way that you add the lists to your the way that you add your fonts to your list is in order of preference. So for example, if we wanted the first font to be Times New Roman, that was the first font that I need to find in the list. So make sure you bear that in mind. I'm going to select Arial Narrow and click this, and I'm then going to say Arial Black, and I'll say Arial Rounded. And the final thing I need to do is add because this is a sans serif, all of those fonts selected are sans serif fonts, we need to add that in, so that will be sans serif, and click OK. And there we have it. If I select OK, and if I go down, you'll see here is my set of grouped fonts: Arial Narrow, Arial Black, and Arial Rounded, and it's a sans serif group of fonts which I can use. Now it's worth mentioning that we don't really have much control over knowing whether the user on various machines will have these fonts loaded, so try to be selective and be cautious in the fonts that you add to your list. And also it's imperative to add the sans serif or a serif type of font, because that basically defines the type of your font. If the user on the machine has not got any of these fonts, basically the browser will just go off and pick the first sans serif font that it could find in a list. So it's really imperative that we have a sans serif or a serif type defined in our font list.